Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back into the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and we are finally back and believed to be healthy here after what feels like a lifetime of being sick. It's been a good month or so that this has been really digging into the recording schedule here, so hopefully you can get on track now and post about the 3 videos per week that I'm looking to get out here up until the summer when we ramp things up a bit for the obviously kickoff to Redraft fantasy football season. But in this episode, we're going to be talking some Dynasty trade advice. That's one of the core pieces and the foundational segments that we do here on the channel is fantasy football trade advice. And I'm just going to be throwing out 5 names today that I think are nice value buys here with the NFL draft just over a week away at this point in time that this video is going up. There's a lot of rookie fever right now, and there's going to be a lot of players clamoring to get their hands last minute on those rookie draft picks, and obviously hopefully taking some young talent in those rookie drafts after the NFL draft takes place. But that opens up a great opportunity for those of us who are looking to go out and buy some vets on the low that can help us contribute to those championship rosters or playoff contending rosters for this up-and-coming season. So these all aren't necessarily names that are going to be the biggest long-term pieces to build with here, but there are some key players that I think have situations where they are multi-year players on your roster and again can contribute in very significant ways to lineups. So as always, if you guys are new around here, drop down, click that like button, and subscribe to the SFS channel. It really helps me out, and we're trying to build the community here. Additionally, if you have not checked out the SFS community Discord, the invite link to that is in the description of today's episode. You can join that up and hop in some mock drafts with me throughout this offseason and chat, ask me questions. As always, if you have questions, you can drop those down and feel free to put those in the comment section below. I will get back to those when they pop up in my inbox. And with that being said, let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into our first player. All right, y'all, I'm really excited for today's episode. I hope you guys are too. I've been waiting for my voice to come back to me here, so I've been waiting, again, a long time to start making videos again. So Aaron Jones is the first player I want to talk about today. And Aaron Jones is someone who this offseason, especially even dating back into last year, has seen his fantasy stock fall a significant amount. And one of the reasons I wanted to touch on Aaron Jones right now is just because of the current status and climate of the Green Bay Packers weapons room on the offensive side of the football, obviously as it pertains to fantasy football. I wanted to talk through A.J. Dillon a little bit here and just break down how I see this situation as a whole right now. So the first thing I want to start off by saying is a quick disclaimer. By no means in what I am saying here with this take that Aaron Jones should be a team's #1 running back in fantasy. I do not believe that Aaron Jones at this point in time is a solidified top 12 running back in as near as the 2022 fantasy season. However, what I think he can be is an extremely productive piece of the puzzle to championship rosters, whether that is a high upside with, again, a high ceiling running back too, or someone that even if you're a super deep team, you can bring him in as your RB3. Now, I expect him to finish within the realm of being a top 24 running back, that being in that RB2 category for next season, for a variety of reasons, despite the fact that A.J. Dillon is going to be heavily worked into this offense. But right now, one of the things, going back to the community Discord, again, the invite link to that is in the description of today's episode. A lot of questions, a lot of talk and chatter that I've been seeing in the Discord lately has been about A.J. Dillon. And that's ultimately what prompted me to put Aaron Jones in today's video, because I'm seeing a lot of fantasy players actively seeking to buy A.J. Dillon and sell off Aaron Jones like he's, yesterday's news, which to an extent is true. However, I'm afraid that we're beginning to start to overvalue A.J. Dillon and the services that he provides to our fantasy lineups and undervalue Aaron Jones and what he still brings to the table, because I still believe, not as a fantasy player, but as an actual NFL running back, he is one of the top 10 best players at the position entering into the league next season. You've got an incredibly dynamic, efficient, skillful player who can get out in space, catch passes for you, and again, do work in both the run and passing game. So the main thing for me with A.J. Dillon is that Aaron Jones is definitely not going to be flushed out of the situation. I'm seeing a lot of teams get offered deals that include A.J. Dillon, or wondering if they should be accepting trade offers for A.J. Dillon, or are simply seeking to buy them on their own. And my main hesitancy with that is the fact that I see Aaron Jones being heavily involved as a receiver next year. And that is a skill set that A.J. Dillon does possess and bring to the table for this Packers roster. But I think Aaron Jones does so at a greater level. And when you look at the lack of weapons currently incorporated into this Green Bay Packers wide receiver room, they need all of the skillful bodies out there on the field that they can get. And right now, Aaron Jones is a guy who has chemistry, trust, and rapport with Aaron Rodgers, which is going to go a long way for him this season. So obviously, the biggest news in Green Bay this year was the departure of Davante Adams, obviously via trade, netting the Packers a first-round and a second-round draft choice. However, we do have some very interesting statistics with Aaron Jones in the receiving game over the past few seasons as it relates to, again, that receiving involvement with Davante Adams off the field. So in games since 2019 with Aaron Jones on the field and Davante Adams off of it, Aaron Jones has netted an 18% target share in the Packers offense, which if you think about it, is a very good amount of receiving work for a wide receiver 2 on an NFL roster. In an offense, if your number 2 wide receiver is racking in an 18% target share, that's a pretty healthy margin to be at. Some lower-end wide receiver 1s that aren't necessarily target magnets might be around that level. That's a pretty healthy estimate and a pretty healthy well, it's not an estimate. This is the factual information of data that has taken place in the past. But as we look to project it towards the 2022 season, I don't expect that it'll be necessarily quite as high as 18%. But I do expect that when he's on the field, he is going to see a lot of targets coming his direction. And if you know anything about fantasy football, you know that receiving involvement equals efficiency. And some of our best and the best fantasy running back producers all contribute in the receiving game. So in those games as well, Aaron Jones is averaging about roughly 5 receptions for 50 yards per game. Again, that's a pretty decent workload to tack on. If you're talking PPR leagues here, Aaron Jones is giving you a lot of upside. That's an 8-point margin that you're tacking on with no rushing involvement and no touchdown production just off of that receiving work that he's getting with, again, Davante Adams off the field. So essentially, my main claim here is that with the lack of receiving core weapons that the Packers have, with the expected presence of rookie receivers, that's going to take time to develop rapport and chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. In day one, I could tell you Aaron Jones is going to be an impact player in this offense. I could make the case that he might just be the best offensive piece that this team has walking into week 1 today if the season opened up right now. So again, I expect him to go out and toss around first-round draft capital for a wide receiver. But again, that player is going to take time to develop. And we've seen over the course of time, receivers have had a more immediate impact each year as we progress forward here. But you still don't know how long that's going to be the case. And when you factor in things that aren't necessarily 100% analytically based with Aaron Rodgers and his history, his track record with how long it takes him to establish significant trust with pass catchers, that's not something that has happened overnight like a Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford situation per se. So I think there's going to be a lot of passing game involvement on the table here for Aaron Jones this next season. If we look back to just one key example that sticks out, Jones had 7 grabs for 51 yards without Davante Adams against the, at the time, undefeated Arizona Cardinals back on October 28th of this season, with A.J. Dillon also in the mix this year. So you're seeing recent scenarios and examples of Aaron Jones getting sprinkled in that passing game work. And then just the last game the Packers played, Jones had 9 for 129 in that playoff divisional round loss against San Francisco. So very long-winded there in the explanation of Aaron Jones, but I do think there is a very great opportunity for a value buy here. Again, not someone that you're banking on to be your RB1, but certainly someone who, if you're looking to contribute RB pieces to the fold, could play a significant factor in teams next season. Miles Sanders is the next running back that I think is getting a bit overlooked here that I wanted to touch on. And again, the purpose of today's video is not to find someone that's going to be a centerpiece of your Dynasty roster moving forward, rather to find supporting cast members that can contribute to the overall goal here. And Miles Sanders is someone who I look at similarly to Aaron Jones, maybe closer to an RB3 than you look at as an Aaron Jones. In that RB2 category, I would say that Miles Sanders could factor in, as a lower-end RB2. His consistency has been something that has been, at times, one of his greatest downfalls. Excuse me, I had to get that out of my system there. So the main reasoning to be in favor of a Miles Sanders is because of his efficiency. Going back to an Aaron Jones, a point that we just made here now, Miles Sanders is certainly not the receiver that an Aaron Jones is. He's not someone that's going to be catching a handful of passes out of the backfield. But what you are getting is the opportunity to have the lead rushing threat in the number one rushing offense in the league in 2021. And why that's significant is because this team is predicated on running the football, and this team has an identity that includes playing smash mouth football. And Miles Sanders is a very, very good running back. I think to this point in his career, as a prospect, he's been a bit underwhelming in the fantasy category because he hasn't necessarily netted us the overall production that we expected. We know now that he's not a workhorse running back. That's not something that we expect to be factored into his situation here long term. But you're looking at a running back you can get for dirt cheap right now. And when I talked about the devaluation of Aaron Jones that has happened the past 2 seasons now, Miles Sanders has had an even more significant devaluation of his fantasy stock. And I think that the buy price for a Miles Sanders could very well be anywhere. It depends on what style and what format of a dynasty league you're playing, but you could probably pick up Miles Sanders at this point in time for a low second round pick, or maybe a couple of thirds. I see no reason why not to send out an offer for a player who, again, would be valued as your team's running back 3 in ideal situations, and gives you an incredible opportunity to have efficient play for a very explosive player, and again, someone who is the lead back in the NFL's top rushing offense a season ago. So you're going to get a healthy amount of volume. Again, not someone who's going to be 25, 30 touches a game, but you are talking about a player who can get anywhere between 15 to 20 touches in a game and give you some nice upside with his ability to break away plays and obviously get outside the tackle box. So the one kicker, there was a lot of kickers. I should address that here, but in 2021, his production was almost entirely stagnant from even a 2020 season when we expected him to have a breakout year because of the fact that he had 0 rushing touchdowns. That's just one more outlier I wanted to point to here. And just the fact that Miles Sanders is someone that you should expect to see have a production increase in that touchdown department, which will help his overall production here going forward this season. That's not something I expect to be a constant moving into 2022 here. The next piece I have is moving into the tight end position, that being David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. And for me, I think that David Njoku finally hit the jackpot this offseason for the situation he's been looking for since being a former first-round draft pick by Cleveland. He's playing under the franchise tag this year, which for long-term dynasty is not fantastic. You'd love to see him get that extension, that long-term security financially, and obviously being locked down to this Browns situation. However, the reason I say he struck gold is because of the fact that Deshaun Watson is now the Cleveland Browns quarterback. No longer Baker Mayfield, who still liked the tight end position and would throw it up to Hooper and David Njoku on frequent occasion, but when you split the touches between the two of them, it really diluted their play. Now you've got just Njoku here. The Browns have picked David Njoku over Austin Hooper, who they cut. He's now a Tennessee Titan. And you're paired with the best quarterback he's played with in his career, who has shown a willingness and a liking for tight ends and has made tight ends of very low stature and talent level fantasy relevant in the past. Made them fringe starters and streamable level players at the tight end position where, let's be honest, we walk into the season every single year with 4 or 5 names, your George Kittles, your Travis Kelce's, Kyle Pitts, Mark Andrews of the world, Darren Waller's. And outside of that, it's a lot of question marks. And I think that this year, David Njoku can be one of, in redraft leagues, the better flyer picks, if you will, late in drafts, a value tight end that I think has a significant amount of upside with his ability, to stretch the field vertically, to go up and make contested grabs and be a weapon in the red zone, and just be a playmaker out in space. I think that right now, when you look at the infrastructure of the Browns passing game, you've got Amari Cooper. And then after that, David Njoku could very easily be the second best pass catching option. That doesn't mean he'll see the second most volume or targets in this offense, but I do think there is a lot of upside to be had here. So I'm really excited about what Njoku brings to the table. I've actually got him stashed as my tight end 2 in one of my Dynasty leagues behind Mark Andrews, so I'm thrilled about that tight end position group. If you're in need of a player at the position, and likely over half of your league is needing this, David Njoku is absolutely someone worth lower round draft capital or swinging out some of your depth to go get, because I think that this could be a difference-making piece in lineups next season. And then Marlon Mack here. We don't have a picture of him in Houston gear yet, obviously, but someone who, if you talk about penny stocks, this is the penny stock of the running back position here. Someone I wanted to talk about that is going for dirt cheap. There's no reason that you would have to pay anything lower than a late round draft pick for a Marlon Mack, or simple bench depth to acquire a player of Marlon Mack's caliber playing in a low output offense in the Houston Texans, not someone, or an organization rather, that you expect to have a high level of offensive production and efficiency. But this is the potential to get the lead back for a team next year. And the reason I say that, currently he is not the day one back heading into camp. So I will preface, this is a highly projection-based trade target per se. Of all the players on the list, Marlon Mack is probably the one with the least amount of guaranteed playing time for the field next season, but I do see very low barriers to entry for him actually surpassing Rex Burkhead, the current team starter, and making his way into a fantasy relevant role with the team. And the reason I say that is because Marlon Mack has had 2 near 1,000-yard seasons in his NFL career. This is a guy who once ran a 4.5 40-yard dash. Not a burner, but someone who north and south is a very productive player. As a pure rusher, has really nice skill sets and traits that he brings to the table. Again, not someone that's going to blow the defense and leave them in the back burner, but someone who can give you a steady 4 yards per carry and carry an offense steadily down the field over long extended drives, which is what this team is going to need next year, because they've got Davis Mills, a developmental quarterback, and obviously limited weapons outside of the run game. So this is a team I expect to play very conservative offensively. Again, Mack did have 908 yards in 2018, 9 rushing touchdowns on top of that, and then 1,091 yards in 2019 and 8 touchdowns to go along with that. He is just 26 years of age, so you've got a player who is still obviously within the scope of their NFL prime, if you will. Now, he did obviously have that devastating Achilles injury that ultimately led to him getting put on the bench in favor of Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis, who is now the almost consensus-wide RB1 for this up-and-coming season because of obviously the offensive line situation. But again, for teams dire in need of running back depth and production here, there is no reason that Marlon Mack can't be an RB4 on a roster, and someone that you add as a bench piece with upside, not someone you expect to start day one, not someone you expect to be a lineup player in the first month of the season even. But injuries do happen. This is a very high-quality backup to have on your roster, a very capable rushing threat, and someone who you look at more in standard and half PPR leagues as, I think, a very viable contributor in those formats. And then finally here, I want to talk about DK Metcalf. Now, DK is another guy who the key word today is value, and having devaluation of these players' stocks in the Dynasty community. Obviously, when Russell Wilson, one of the top, I don't want to be controversial today, so I'll say a top 7 quarterback in the league, and I'm not saying he's 7. I'm also not saying he's 1. But when you lose one of the league's top quarterbacks, obviously your stock is going to take a hit, especially when you're replacing them with Drew Lock and having nothing but Geno Smith left on the roster to obviously salvage what is left of the talent that is DK Metcalf. So obviously his fantasy stock took a huge blow there. I'm not discrediting that. But the point that I want to make here is that DK Metcalf is a fantastic player with a great fantasy skill set, a player who can go up, win jump balls, be a blazer downfield, and have an extremely high fantasy ceiling on a week-to-week basis because of the skill set and playmaking ability he has. You're getting him at the ripe age of 24. He'll be turning 25, I believe, in the middle of next season. And you're getting him on what is currently still his first contract. So you've got a player in DK Metcalf, along with A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, some of those wide receivers from the class of 2019, all in somewhat of contract disputes right now. Got some beef with their front offices, obviously, because they want to get paid the dough like we saw Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, and Devontae Adams get. But I think these guys are, it's their first post-rookie contract extension, so I'm not sure if those guys will get those numbers or are deserving of those numbers. But nonetheless here, you're getting a very discounted price on DK Metcalf because of the fear in the fantasy stock market, if you will, surrounding his situation. And I do think it is very volatile right now. This is a move that I would make for a team that isn't necessarily in contention, because consistency has not always been DK Metcalf's strong suit. And when you introduce him into a situation with, let's face it, less consistent quarterback play with Drew Lock and widely sporadic quarterback play for that matter, you're going to see even more struggles with consistency. You're still going to see that ceiling. We did see DK have an ability to produce to an extent for a couple games with Geno Smith after Russell Wilson went down last year. But the thought here is that you're buying low on a young player with tremendous upside who is, I believe, entering into their prime. I still believe that DK Metcalf has not reached his potential as an NFL player. And hopefully, whether it's through the draft, free agency, another trade, Seattle can patch this position up in a couple of years' time and give you the upside when the rest of your team is coming together to make a move. So this is a bit more of a long-term play than some of the other moves that we've seen in today's episode. And so hopefully you guys stuck with me here and weren't keyboard warriors going to just read the name of the player I had in the list. You listened to the explanation, hopefully, and if you're obviously still here, that is the case. So I thank you very much for watching today's episode. If you've not done so already, make sure you go check me out on Twitter. We are growing that community very slowly but surely. It's pretty lonely on Twitter still, but we're looking to gain more followers. You can find me at Fantasy Sizzle if you go type that into your Twitter search account or account search page, or you can just go to the description of today's episode or the homepage of our channel and check out the link there. But again, go check me out on Twitter. Go check out the SFS Community Discord and join the conversation. Of course, if you have questions again today, I'm always willing to answer those. So whenever I see them, I'll get back to you. Just drop those down in the comment section below or again in the SFS Community Discord if you have not joined that yet. And then, of course, as always, subscribe if you're new around here. Click the like button if you enjoyed today's episode. And thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Peace out.